NEC Article 820 Part Roman 2 pertains to cables located outside and entering buildings. This section of the National Electrical Code addresses the proper installation methods and safety requirements for communication cables, such as those used for cable television, telephone, and internet services. The goal is to minimize the risk of electrical hazards and ensure the reliable operation of communication systems. Article 820 encompasses a wide range of topics, including grounding, bonding, separation from power conductors, and physical protection of cables. One of the most critical aspects of Article 820 is the requirement for proper grounding and bonding. Communication cables must be grounded to prevent voltage surges and protect against electrical shock. Grounding involves connecting the cable shield or metallic sheath to a grounding electrode system, such as a ground rod or the building's grounding system. Bonding, on the other hand, refers to the interconnection of metallic parts to create a low impedance path for fault currents. This helps to minimize voltage differences and reduce the risk of electrical shock. Another important consideration is the separation of communication cables from power conductors. Article 820 specifies minimum distances that must be maintained between communication cables and power conductors to prevent inductive coupling and reduce the risk of electrical interference. Inductive coupling occurs when the electromagnetic field generated by a power conductor induces a voltage in a nearby communication cable, which can result in noise and signal degradation. Furthermore, Article 820 addresses the physical protection of cables. Communication cables must be protected from physical damage such as abrasion, impact, and exposure to moisture. This can be achieved by using conduit, cable trays, or other suitable enclosures. In areas where cables are subject to physical damage, they must be installed in a manner that minimizes the risk of damage. The National Electrical Code is revised and updated every 3 years to reflect changes in technology and industry practices. The 2005 edition of the NEC included significant revisions to Article 820, particularly in regards to the requirements for cable installation outside and entering buildings. One specific requirement introduced in the 2005 NEC is that cable companies cannot attach their drop to the electrical service mast. The electrical service mast is the conduit or pipe that brings electrical power from the utility company's lines to the building's electrical panel. Attaching communication cables to the service mast can create a safety hazard, as it can increase the risk of electrical shock and damage to the electrical system. Firstly, attaching communication cables to the service mast can create a pathway for electrical current to flow from the power lines to the communication cables. If a fault occurs in the electrical system, the communication cables could become energized, posing a risk of electrical shock to anyone who comes into contact with them. Secondly, the weight of the communication cables can put undue stress on the service mast, potentially causing it to bend or break. This can compromise the integrity of the electrical system and create a safety hazard. Thirdly, attaching communication cables to the service mast can interfere with the proper operation of the electrical system. The communication cables can act as antennas, picking up electromagnetic interference from the power lines and transmitting it to the building's electrical equipment. To ensure safety and prevent interference, the NEC requires that communication cables be installed separately from the electrical service mast. Communication cables must be supported by their own dedicated support structures, such as poles, brackets, or cable trays. These support structures must be designed to withstand the weight of the cables and the forces of wind and ice. In addition to the requirements for cable installation outside buildings, Article 820 also specifies requirements for cable entry into buildings. Cables must enter buildings through approved entry points, such as conduit or sleeves. The entry points must be sealed to prevent the entry of moisture, rodents, and other pests. Cables must also be protected from physical damage as they enter the building. In summary, NEC Article 820 Part Roman 2 provides comprehensive guidelines for the installation of communication cables outside and entering buildings. The goal is to minimize the risk of electrical hazards, ensure the reliable operation of communication systems, and prevent interference between communication cables and power conductors. The 2005 NEC introduced specific requirements to prevent cable companies from attaching their drop to the electrical service mast, which has improved electrical safety. Always consult the latest edition of the NEC and local building codes for the most up-to-date requirements